Let me ask you something real, something raw. Have you ever stared at your phone, fighting the gravity of silence? Wanting, aching, to reach out, just to feel seen again, just to remind them, I'm still here. Yeah. That moment. That war between pride and vulnerability. That strange silence that hums louder than any argument ever could. You know what I'm talking about. Because maybe right now, you're not just wondering if they secretly hope you'll text again, you're haunted by the question. You feel it. When your thumb hovers over the screen. When you replay old conversations in your mind like they still have unfinished lines. When a memory hits out of nowhere and you wonder, do they even think about me? This isn't just about unanswered messages. This is about identity. About worth. About stoic relationships and what silence really says when no one is brave enough to speak first. Here's the common trap. Maybe even the lie. You've been sold. That silence means someone doesn't care. That if they haven't reached out, they've moved on. That healing must be loud, visible, Instagrammable. But what if I told you that belief is backwards? That true healing, real power, comes not from chasing a text, but from mastering your own stillness. What if the very silence that's tearing you apart is the same silence that's actually pulling them back in ways you can't see? Let's go deeper. Because this isn't another video telling you to just focus on yourself with empty words and surface-level advice. This is different. This is stoicism applied in the trenches. This is where emotional power is forged, not in noise, but in presence. In clarity. In the uncomfortable, unspoken truths. We're not here to play games. We're here to shift how you see silence, to rewire your instincts, and show you that your stillness may be the most unforgettable message you've ever sent. So, if you've ever wondered if they secretly hope you'll reach out, this is for you. If you've ever felt like your silence was invisible, like your absence didn't matter, this is your reminder. You are not unseen. You are just misunderstood by those who haven't felt the gravity of your presence, yet. And what's coming next? It's not about games. It's about becoming something they never expected, untouchable, unforgettable, unshakably grounded. Stay with me. Because once we pull back the curtain, what you're about to see will challenge everything you thought about love, loss, and the unspoken language of stoic relationships. Ready? Let's begin. 1. The illusion of moving on. Have you ever scrolled through someone's Instagram and thought, they've moved on, they look happy, like nothing ever mattered? Maybe you've watched their stories, laughing with friends, sharing moments that you once imagined being part of, scrolling past it all with a smile that feels too bright to be real. And inside you, something shifts, a weight settles in your chest, and you wonder, am I the only one who actually felt something real? Did any of it matter to them at all? It's easy, and comfortable, to believe that those bright, loud displays of happiness show genuine healing. That when someone posts that perfect photo, laughs in a story, and seems utterly unbothered, it means they've moved on completely. That their heart has already healed and they're ready for the next big thing. But that's the illusion. That's what your mind wants you to believe so that it doesn't have to feel the sting of loss, the ache of absence, the quiet slip of what once was. Here's the truth that doesn't get said enough: appearances lie. All the noise, the laughter, the late-night posts, they're not proof of peace. They're often armor, deliberate, constructed, and desperate. What you see is the highlight reel, not the full story. You don't see them lying awake at 2 a.m. wondering whether you're even thinking of them. You don't see the moments when they scroll past your name and hold their breath. You don't see the hesitation in their thumb when they almost type out a message, but then delete it. So many people think that moving on must look easy, must appear seamless, must feel visible. But that's a lie sold by social media culture and emotional conditioning. The louder someone appears, the deeper their attempt to drown out something they don't want to feel. And that something? It could very well be you. If someone looks like they've healed, more often than not, they're hiding something deeper. They're avoiding the reflection that silence demands. Because silence shines a light on their real feelings. And they don't want to face those feelings, not yet. Their outward calm might be a mask, Their stories, a performance. Their laughter, a script. Ask yourself, have you ever rushed to judgment when you saw them moving on? Maybe you painted them as callous, dismissive, even emotionally unavailable. But what if it's the exact opposite? What if behind that bright exterior lies fear, the fear of feeling you again? Fear that one quiet night will bring a wave of memories that would knock them off their feet. Fear that maybe, just maybe, you mattered more than they admitted. That real truth terrifies them. Because if they let themselves truly feel it, they have to confront someone they built a life around, someone who's no longer there. In Stoic relationships, power isn't about who shines brightest, or who acts least affected, or who scrolls and laughs like everything's fine. It's about who stands still when everything is moving. It's not about performance. It's about presence. That's why what looks like moving on might actually be motion without meaning, a desperate kind of momentum designed to buy time before facing the fallout. Let's get practical. Picture them texting a close friend. "I'm doing fine." But what does that message really mean? Maybe to them, it's code for, "Please don't ask if I'm okay. Please don't say you know how I feel." Because admitting their pain would shatter their image. It would mean they were hurt. It would mean that you still have power over them, even if you're not physically in their life anymore. They could text you, of course. But the fear of rejection, your indifference, or opening old wounds, that worry is bigger than their desire to reconnect. And so they stay quiet. They smile. They move through their days like they're healed, and maybe they fool themselves too. Maybe they post that photo not because they're happy, but because they need to convince themselves that they are. The world trains us to hide discomfort. Brightness is easier to share than vulnerability. And so, the illusion of moving on becomes a performance we repeat until we start to believe it ourselves. But here's your edge as someone practicing Stoicism. You know the power of silence. You know it's not weakness. You know growth doesn't have to be loud. You know healing doesn't have to look Instagrammable. And while they hide behind noise, you sit with the silence. You let your heart feel absent. You let your life unfold in those still spaces. You become the calm in your own storm, and in doing so, you become presence in a way most people lose track of. Take a moment and reflect. When they post that perfect evening with friends, is it about the friends? Or is it about avoiding the emptiness that conversation with you once filled? When they laugh in a video, is it joy or denial? When they say they're fine, are they lying to the world or to themselves? And if their silence is an illusion of moving on, what does that tell you about how deeply they felt you? You may feel small in the face of their performance. But chances are, their performance is small compared to what happened between you two. Their silence screams more loudly than their posts. Their avoidance speaks deeper than their laughs. And their need to look unbothered signals more inward turmoil than words ever could. This is where Stoicism becomes your compass. This is where Stoic relationships begin, not with words, but with quiet observation. You watch without judgment. You let their illusion fall apart in your absence, not with bitterness, but with peace. You don't fill the silence with explanations. You fill it with presence. You don't chase with desperation. You chase with discipline. You don't demand a reaction. You demand self-mastery. And here's what happens when you stay there. When you accept that their loud happiness isn't real healing. You pull the rug out from under their facade. Without saying a word, without giving them ammunition, you expose their mask by simply refusing to engage. Because no one has to sit with their emptiness when someone is offering connection. No one has to hold their pride up when someone else has already let go. And they can't maintain the illusion of moving on when you're gone for real. So we circle back to the question at the heart of this entire thing. Do they secretly hope you'll text again? If their outward performance is hollow, if their silence speaks louder than their presence, even if it's quieter, then the answer is yes. If they're performing for you, performing because inside they're unraveling, they're waiting for a signal. They want a reason to replace performance with connection again. But they're too afraid to be the first to give it. Because Stoic people like you, they don't perform emotional vulnerability. They practice it. And there lies the difference. The illusion of moving on isn't just about them. It's an opportunity for you. An invitation to stand firm. To hold your boundaries. To sit with your own silence. To become your own signal. Because in that stillness lies integrity, and in integrity lies power. Their performance can't survive your peace. In Stoic Relationships practice, the greatest shift doesn't come from blowing them away with words. It comes from quietly rewriting the rules. From showing that healing doesn't require noise. That you don't chase. That you don't explain. That you simply become more whole, more grounded, more yourself than you've ever been. So don't get fooled by bright posts and staged laughter. Don't get tricked into thinking their silence doesn't feel you. Let their illusion of moving on do the talking, for both of you. Because once their mask cracks, once their performance fades, all that's left is reality. And in that raw space, where nothing is hidden, you'll find your power. And maybe, just maybe, they'll find theirs too. 2. When pride speaks louder than desire. Feel that tension when a simple text could bridge the distance but doesn't? You know when they open your chat, maybe type a quick, "Hey, how you been?" but then delete it before the screen even fades to black? That hesitation isn't weakness. It's tension. A silent war between pride and longing, between ego and the heart that still remembers. It's a classic Stoic dynamics in relationships, a fierce internal battle where vulnerability is the one thing their pride refuses to admit. It's easier to believe they don't care than to admit they fear rejection. So they wear silence as armor, convinced it's strength. But pride is a mask, and masks crack under pressure. Behind the resistance is sincerity. What looks like coldness is often a heart that still hurts. That blinking cursor on the screen is a confession of what they're truly feeling, but they're scared of what your response might confirm. What if you've moved on too far? What if you don't care anymore? Pride whispers that staying quiet is safer than risking a message returned with indifference or rejection. It's a coward's surrender disguised as Stoic strength. But let's talk context. Think about your own moments of hesitation. Think about the times you opened a chat, thumb hovering over send, fighting with your instincts. That gap between feeling and expressing? That's where truth lives. That's where genuine emotion, fear, longing, remorse, echoes loudest. And the best part, because you're practicing real stoicism, you don't run from those questions. You sit with them. You hold space for your humanity, and don't allow pride to silence your truth. So when they hesitate, think of it like this: they're fighting themselves. Their pride smashed against their desire. And guess who's winning? Sometimes either. They're stuck in that vicious loop. You, on the other hand, aren't stuck, you're standing. Part of Stoic relationships is understanding that silence isn't always about disinterest. Even when it looks like it. It's often a shield raised to guard a fragile heart. And in that shielded state, words can't come at all. How many times in your own life have you stayed silent not because you didn't have something important to say, but because you simply didn't want to risk saying it? Because you knew it might change everything, or nothing at all, and you weren't ready? That doesn't make you heartless. It makes you human. Strong but scared. So, next time you wonder, do they secretly hope I'll text again? Remember that the silence between them and you might be less a withdrawal and more a standoff. A question of timing. A question of courage. Because to admit they still care, publicly, vulnerably, sincerely, means potentially exposing that care to rejection. That's humility at risk. Loss of control. And pride? Pride hates losing control. So they stay quiet. They wait. They want you to make the first move. Not because they don't feel, because they're afraid to feel that deeply. Stoicism teaches us that control starts from within. Accept what is outside your immediate control, and change what is inside. And when you see someone fighting their own emotions, you don't control them. You control your reaction. You don't beg them to speak. You don't throw pity or drama at them. You let your silence meet theirs. You let your stillness show them there is strength in calm, strength in waiting. Because actions driven by desperation aren't stoic. Actions born of inner clarity are. Here's the crux. Their pride may push them away, but their heart won't let them forget. That's why so many people stay stuck in silence, caught between wanting to text and wanting to keep the illusion of strength. They're so afraid that any message would ruin their script, the script that they're over it, that they're unbothered. But Stoic relationships flip the script. They make it okay, essential, even, to be disrupted by truth. They show that silence won't kill you, lying will. And so they stay silent. Not because they're emotionless, but because they're scared to feel. As you watch this, maybe you've been waiting for them to break that silence. You've been hoping for a message when all along, what's needed isn't you reaching out, it's them changing their definition of strength. What if you stopped chasing them entirely and let the silence do what your words couldn't? What if you let your calm and your self-respect speak as loudly as any apology or explanation? When a person is stuck in the tension of pride versus desire, all that matters is who shifts the balance first. And who better to shift it than the person who saw the truth first? That's what makes Stoicism powerful in relationships. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to beg for reckoning. You simply embody the person they feared you would become without them. Present. Whole. Unapologetically still. And when they type and delete, open and close, it's not weakness. It's vulnerability beneath a broken guard. Every time they hesitate again, they step closer to knocking at your door. Not because you're perfect. Because you're real. So in that moment of standoff, remember this: your silence reveals more than any text can. Your strength carries weight. Your refusal to chase cracks the illusion that they have power over your peace. And if they don't know how to respond, that's not your problem. That's on them, to either face the truth or bury it deeper. But either way, you hold your ground. You hold your doctrine. Part of Stoicism is being unbothered by a world that worships reaction. Another part is standing so firm in your own values that even silence becomes a response. Now, this isn't about forgiveness or revenge. This isn't about punishing them with absence. This is about choosing presence for yourself, choosing self-respect over emotional noise. So when pride opposes desire, let patience win. Let silence speak. Let them taste the gravity of not chasing you. Let them realize that hope without courage is futile. And let them know you can wait longer than their pride can hold you. When you refuse to fill the emptiness, they're forced to stare into it, with or without courage. And that's powerful. That's life-changing. That's the kind of quiet they never thought would happen. And if you're feeling that right now, raw, uncertain, quiet, know this: that feeling matters more than their text. That moment will grow you. It's proof you can walk away from scripts, from expectations, from desperation. It's the moment you stop reacting and start deciding. Remember, silence doesn't mean absence. It means presence in a truer form. Silence gives space for healing. Silence reveals what noise has always hidden: truth. Silence is not a tactic, it's mastery. Do you feel that tension? That hesitation inside you when thinking of them? That's your courage rising. Let it. Let it steady your presence. Let it become the reason they break first. And when, or if, they type that text, they'll see not your need, but your strength. If this hits home, go ahead and like this video and leave a comment with number 1 if this part resonated. And if you're committed to uncovering more truths about Stoic relationships and Stoicism in action, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next part. 3. The moment they almost reach out. Have you ever felt someone's hesitation as if it were your own? Picture them lying in bed at 1:17 a.m., the room silent except for their racing thoughts. Your song plays softly, the lyrics echoing somewhere in their chest. Instantly, their phone is in hand, screen unlocked, chat open, thumb hovering that dreaded send button. A simple, "Hey, how's life?" Nothing monumental, but it never goes through. They delete the message, exit the app, lock the screen, and the silence returns. They lay there, heart pounding, breath shaky, mind replaying every version of that unsent text. That's the moment they almost reach out. It's you condensed into one fleeting action, one moment where pride and fear collide. That hesitation is more revealing than 1,000 words. It's proof that they still care. It's evidence that you occupy a space in their heart they're not ready to fill with presence yet. But they tremble at the possibility of risk. What if you've already moved on? What if they aren't certain you'll respond? What if everything fades into more regret? Unlike reactions born of panic or desperation, this hesitance is human. It's flawed, fragmented, real. They don't just want to talk, they desperately want to feel something familiar again. But they also fear the exposure, the confirmation that you don't matter as much anymore. They're afraid of crossing the threshold between memory and vulnerability, because once they step over, they can't crawl back into the safety of ego's shell. Stoicism teaches that courage is not the absence of fear, it's the act of living in spite of it. In this moment, they're paralyzed by fear. They want connection but fear the fallout. They want your humanity back, but they fear losing control. And they wonder if the cost is worth paying. This is exactly where Stoic relationships demand clarity, not from them, but from you. Not from their broken courage, but from your grounded presence. Because when someone staggers on the brink of reaching out, finger poised above send, that's not detachment. That's longing unmet. That's hesitation born of love still breathing beneath the surface. It's tempting to romanticize that broken glance at vulnerability, imagining they almost hit send and would have done it if only. If only you hadn't moved on so completely. If only you still seemed within reach. But Stoicism reminds us, the value is in what you controlled, not what they nearly did. They could have texted you. They didn't. They hesitated. Maybe again and again. Every moment they paused was a silent cry, I still care. But they refused to risk. Because risking demands hope, and hope demands courage. And for now, their courage is fractured. When you held your silence, you didn't just test their limit, you revealed theirs. You didn't force a reaction. You revealed their longing in its rawest form, unspoken, trembling, almost there, but not quite. That's meaningful. It's proof of depth. But it's also proof of fear. Stoicism calls us to recognize depth without being defined by it. You become the horizon they can aim for, not the bottomless ocean they're afraid to swim in. That's power. Emotionally, this is a turning point. Imagine the ripple of nearly sent words coursing through their mind. Imagine the crest of a confession stopped short, the wave retreating just shy of shore. That wave remains, building under the surface. That unspoken message vibrates in them, reminding them there was once more, a connection, an intention, a bond worth the risk. And every time they hesitate again, that cord tightens, harmonizing with regret and longing. Now think about your role in all of this. You're not waiting for that unsent text. You're building yourself in silence. You're unbothered by their fear. You don't need them to explain. You don't need their confession. You need presence. You need clarity. And silence, your silent example, is sharper than any words they might type. You don't lose ground when they don't send the text. In fact, your freedom grows. This moment has the potential to shift the entire emotional landscape. If they gather the courage to type again, to send that message, they're stepping into vulnerability. But they won't until their fear is outweighed by their need. And your stillness plays a part in that balance. You don't chase them into vulnerability. You offer them a space where vulnerability is possible but never demanded. That gap between almost reaching out and breaking through? That's where transformation lives, for both of you. Because true Stoic relationships aren't transactional. They aren't about escalating drama or forced reconciliation. They're about evolution. They're about letting your presence inspire awareness. And awareness can dismantle walls, sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly. But always reckoned without aggression, without noise, without demand. So when you sense that moment, they opened the chat, typed a few words, paused, words unsent. You don't break your silence. You let it speak. You let it reflect the distance they created. You let them feel that distance like gravity pulls at the tide. Let that unsent message echo. Let it haunt them until they either overcome their fear, or not. Either way, you remain grounded. Strong. present in your own life, with or without their text. And if one day they gather the courage and send that message, they won't hear the desperation. They'll sense composure. They'll feel maturity. They'll know you speak from presence. They'll know who they lost and why. But until that day, your silence is not absence. It's strength refined in the crucible of Stoic determination. It's transformation unfolding without fanfare. And it's your answer to the question, do they secretly hope you'll text again? Yes. Yes, they do. But now you hold the power to witness, without desperation. To remain present in your truth, without reaction. 4. Your silence becomes the message. What if the most powerful thing you've ever said wasn't a word at all, but your absence? Imagine, for a moment, that silence wasn't passive but a signal, a message so loud it reverberates through someone's core. Because when you choose not to chase, when you stop explaining, when you let your peace speak instead of your words, you declare ownership over yourself. That's what true Stoic relationships are built on: authenticity, boundaries, emotional integrity. And your silence? It becomes the loudest confession you're capable of sending. They might ask themselves, did he even care? The answer echoes in the emptiness of those unanswered messages. They might wonder, why didn't you reach out? And they hear the sound of your clarity. You became the signal by choosing not to send one. Your absence isn't an empty void, it's a spotlight on what was real. It challenges illusions, forces presence, awakens waiting hearts. Silence isn't hidden. It isn't passive. It's deliberate, expansive, intentional. It makes those who expected your reassurance squirm with discomfort, because now they have to decide, do I own up to what I lost, or do I stay comfortable in my denial? And they feel it in moments they never expected, when your name pops uninvited into their mind, when they catch themselves replaying your voice in the car, when a song drops them straight back into those memories. That's your silence delivering its message, subtle, transformative, powerful. When you texted last time, you risked sounding hopeful. When you waited by your phone, you gave them power over your peace. But when you stopped, something shifted. You no longer needed their validation. You didn't need explanation. You weren't hungry for reconciliation. You were simply anchored in yourself. That's not indifference. That's sovereignty. That's stoicism in motion. That's turning silence into presence, tranquility into a force that demands introspection. If they scroll through your feed, watch your stories, call up shared memories, they feel it. Not because you posted publicity, but because they realize what you didn't post. You didn't share desperation. You didn't write emotional quotes. You didn't reach out through mutual friends or send small gestures to test the water. You just lived. And living doesn't need to be loud for reality to strike. Their silence forms a mirror to yours, and in that reflection they see what they lost. You want to know what matters most in Stoic relationships? It's not who starts the conversation, it's who sustains the integrity of their absence. It's not about writing the next line, it's about writing the next chapter of your life. And if clarity is truth, then your silence is the loudest truth you own. They might watch that silence and wonder, is he mad? Is she indifferent? Why this calm? Fascination grows when drama disappears. And in that stillness, your authenticity commands attention. They may never ask why you're absent. They may post, everything's fine, to save face. They may distract themselves with momentary flings or social media escapism. But you know, peace can't be faked. Happiness can't be forced. And healing isn't a performance. Stoicism teaches us that silence isn't void, it's space for transformation. It's where we reconcile what we can't control, strengthen what we value, and shape ourselves in the absence of noise. Here's the curve: your silence doesn't play out overnight. It unfolds, slowly, certainly, gradually. It begins when you stop explaining and defending. It deepens when you refuse to respond to every ping. It solidifies when you stop justifying your value. Each quiet moment compounds. Each refusal to chase increases your gravity. And eventually, That silence echoes back to them louder than any conversation ever could. Think of the ocean tide. You don't see the pressure building. But then the wave hits. You don't feel every drop of water coming until the shoreline shifts. That's your silence. It accumulates beneath their consciousness. And when the wave crashes, they'll wonder what shifted. But they'll still feel it. They'll still hear it. Because silence can speak louder than words when those words aren't worth hearing. When your silence becomes the message, you create absence not as punishment, but as proof. Proof you don't need to belong to someone else's chaos to know your worth. You become the unspoken answer. You become the emotional benchmark. And you give them a choice: rise to meet that standard, or drown in the silence awakened by your absence. But here's the measure: you don't stay silent forever waiting for them. You stay silent until that silence serves your growth. When your peace reaches another stage, when your life requires noise again, when your presence is called for not by longing but by purpose, you speak. Not to them necessarily, but to your next environment. To your next chapter. To your next commitment. And in that moment, the silence behind you remains untainted. That's your Stoic message. Not revenge. Not surrender. Not control. But clarity. Not bitterness, but balance. Not drama, but dignity. Not proof that absence inflicts pain, but proof that presence defines value. You might wonder, what if they never reach out? What if they never break the silence? That's on them. What matters is this: your silence is not a regret. It's your statement. It's your embodiment of self-respect. It's your testimony to Stoicism, that emotional maturity is born in quiet, not in outbursts. That healing is built in presence, not reaction. That transformations whisper, and even when they speak, they say nothing at all. So if you feel what this part brings, if it resonates, go ahead and like this video and drop a number 1 in the comments to anchor this with me. Subscribe if you're ready to continue peeling back the layers of Stoic relationships and Stoicism in practice. Your presence matters, your silence speaks, and what we're building together is more powerful than recovery, it's rebirth. 5. The echo of your absence. Have you ever noticed how absence has a sound of its own, a relentless echo that never truly leaves? It's not timing or distance, it's a presence wrapped in emptiness, filled with all the things left unspoken. When your voice quieted and your presence stopped knocking, that echo didn't vanish, it transformed. It followed them into spaces that were once routine, the seat you always occupied, the laughter that once filled the room, the coffee mug you always grabbed. In those spaces, your absence began to thrum, a steady rhythm that asked questions they weren't brave enough to acknowledge. This echo is more haunting than any confrontation. If pride is a loud performance, absence is a quiet reckoning. It doesn't demand explanation. It doesn't insist on resolution. It just exists, a boundary without walls, a reminder of what was valuable and gone. It emerges gradually. It surfaces without grand gestures. You don't have to force it, stage it, or announce it. Once you choose peace over explanation, once you choose presence over performance, the echo does its work, on its own, in its time, without your input. And it does it better than any text, any call, any attempt to prove your worth. Consider how often you think of someone who's gone, a passing reminder, a fleeting thought, a smile at a shared joke. That's the echo. Its power lies in subtlety, in constancy, in the way it creeps in when the world goes quiet. That's the difference between someone who's forgotten and someone who's missed. The latter lingers. They don't blare into memory, they settle into it, quietly, persistently, irrevocably. What gives this echo its weight is depth. Not the flash of a message, but the weight of what you brought when you were present. Consistency. Compassion. Reliability. In Stoic relationships, the deepest connections aren't flashy, they're functional, foundational. They anchor you in ways that drama never could. And once that foundation departs, the structure isn't shaken by uproar, it trembles in the silence that replaces it. You might still see them, without thinking, comparing where you were to where they are now. You might notice their delayed replies, or the moments they wonder aloud to a friend. "Why didn't you reach out?" Even masked by laughter, that question echoes. That's the manifestation of your absence calling out for acknowledgement. The echo demands context, consistency, care. And when that's missing, even a smile becomes a reminder. A hint. A fissure. It's not on them to speak it. It's for them to feel it. Meanwhile, your life keeps moving, driven not by the need for connection, but by the pull of purpose. You focus on projects that thrill you. You invest in people who choose presence. You chase goals that align with your integrity. You're silent, but not inactive. You're silent, but not passive. Your absence isn't hiding you, it's redirecting energy. Energy that used to fill emotional gaps now pours into you. You find yourself in places and people you never might have discovered had your world stayed unchanged. In this silence, you find expansion. And that's the sharpest edge of it all. Your echo doesn't exist so they mourn. You may not be the center of their life. But your echo exists as a standard, as a baseline. And if they don't measure up to it, they feel that dissonance. They feel that gap between what was meaningful and what remained. It's not revenge. It's clarity. It's emotional discernment given time to flourish. What they thought they could replace or ignore can no longer be ignored, because absence doesn't allow complacency. The air shifts, and they sense it. They sense what stabilized them before, and wonder whatever replaced it. The echo also sparks internal reckoning. Internal recognition that something once held steady, and now they're unsteady. It shows up in unexpected moments. During a celebration, a late-night laugh, a vacation they always wanted to share, or a crisis they expected you to respond to. It comes with a punch, the realization that when they looked for you, there was only silence. That void carries more meaning than 1,000 messages ever could. In Stoic relationships, growth can come late and silently. You don't always hear the breakthroughs. Your absence may have taught them, even if they never say the words. Their world didn't collapse. It recalibrated. It bent toward the tension you left behind. And their inner landscape shifted in the spaces between messages they never sent and calls they never made. That's where change lives, not in grand admissions, but in quiet alignment. It's not about winning an apology or validation. It's about letting reality speak through emptiness, and watching as they reckon with it, perhaps without even noticing. And here's what you hold. You walk forward while the echo walks backward. You don't linger in their grief. You let their reckoning proceed without you. Because you understand this, a stoic heart doesn't chase echoes, it learns from them, leaves room for them, but doesn't live in them. You've walked away from a ghost, and now you live free of it. Where they stare into the echo, you create new resonance. You build new memories. You find new echoes that bring you joy instead of tension. It's not selfish, it's sovereignty. It's not cold, it's conscientious. It's not avoidance, it's advancement. You've let the echo do its work so you could do yours. The silence that taught them now teaches you more. You've exchanged reaction for reflection. You exchanged longing for purpose. You exchanged presence that needed proving for presence that simply is. That's transformation. And here's what stands. Some stories echo beyond their actors. Some relationships leave lingering influence long after goodbye is spoken. That's what you created, and you didn't force it. You just became the kind of person who, when absent, still matters. That's not a tactic. That's truth. That's stoicism applied, internally and externally. So if you feel that echo right now, 5, 10 years later, or just moments after walking away, know this, it's not a burden. It's a signal. A reminder of depth, authenticity, worth. A reminder that you once gave more than they realized, and gave them the freedom to see it by stepping away. And in their silence, your echo grew louder. They may never ask for you back. They may never reach out. The echo may never resolve. But that's not where the story ends. You continue. You grow. You echo in new spaces you once feared to explore. And that echo of presence resonates louder than any echo of absence ever could. Because in true Stoic relationships, the bond isn't measured by continued presence, it's measured by the weight you leave behind. And you leave a lot behind. 6. They know they lost you, but won't say it. Have you ever watched someone silently hold on to pride so fiercely that they won't even admit their own heart's betrayal? I'm talking about that moment when reality hits, not with noise, but with a whisper. I lost something I can't get back. They sit with that truth and refuse to speak it. That's stage 6 of this transformation, the point where their silence no longer hides their loss. It amplifies it. They may continue to act casual, laugh at jokes, post late-night cocktails, smile like everything's fine. But behind every smile is the memory of what once anchored them. They feel it in the soft emptiness when everyone goes to sleep. In the fleeting thoughts that pass through their mind when they expect your voice but hear only radio static. In the subtle ache that comes when they remember they can't just pick up the phone and talk to you. That ache isn't just nostalgia. It's acknowledgement of a void they created by valuing image over intimacy, control over connection. It starts in unpredictable moments. They try on a jacket you loved, and their chest tightens. They rehearse an inside joke with friends and realize you're not there to laugh with them. They walk past a street corner you used to stroll and look around, waiting for you to appear. That's the echo I talked about before, but here it's personal. It's no longer abstract absence, it's personalized longing. They know they lost you, because they feel the vacancy only you could fill. But pride shuts their mouth. Their ego sings louder than their hearts whisper. They'll tell friends they're fine, without blinking. They'll shrug off memories like crumpled paper. They laugh about how they never really needed you. But their laughter is brittle. Pride thrives in denial. Recognition happens in the cracks, underneath the facade. Have you heard a door silently close? A laugh that tries too hard? That's loss speaking in silence. They might venture close to a message. Hey, hope you're good. Typed but never sent. Maybe they're a few words in and stop, because each letter feels like surrender. To admit they miss you is to give you continued influence over their emotions. And ego hates that. But their journals, or minds, or private playlists tell another story. They replay the shine of your compassion, your presence during crisis, your laughter when they were at their lowest. Those memories crystallize into a standard. And that standard, they can't rebuild. Not with pride intact. This is the brutal clarity of Stoicism. Recognizing truth doesn't require words. Your value doesn't require recognition. Your absence doesn't need apology. You don't soften your edges because someone can't handle their reflection. You remain intact. You remain you. Because Stoicism isn't about denying feelings, it's about mastering them. And while their pride may delay the confession, your integrity doesn't wait for acknowledgement. Maybe they'll never say it. That's their choice. Maybe they'll stay locked in performance, for years if necessary. That does not diminish your impact. Your presence, your consistency, your silence, you left a mark. And they can carry that mark without admitting ownership. That silent ownership is stronger than any public apology they might never muster. Now, imagine this. They run into someone who doesn't retreat when challenged, who doesn't pick fights to prove themselves, who walks away when peace is more valuable than impression. Someone who laughed at silence and didn't cave to tension. That's the force you became. Unvoiced. Unbowed. Unbroken. That's your stoic presence working its quiet miracle. You didn't say a thing, yet your absence said everything. What you didn't post, what you didn't share, what you didn't chase, all of it announced your sovereignty. And they know they lost something they can't replace. That's not desperation. They understand they had dignity and warmth they let slip away. And you? You didn't chase. You didn't dramatize. You rose. And now when they check the time and hesitate to hit send, their pride snaps, and silence wins again. They know. But they won't admit it. Because this world rewards survival, not introspection. It honors conquest, not healing. So they may choose to remain proud. They may say, "I don't need it," even while high tides of regret wash over them. They may cling to a narrative that says they won, that they forgot, ever so softly reminding themselves that maybe they didn't win at all. And time passes. People change. New chapters begin. But what doesn't change is your impact. They may build a life that feels full, but they'll never rebuild the exact same space they lost. That's what it means to leave a void, not as punishment, but as presence distilled. That void reminds them of depth, stillness, authenticity. Things that can't be duplicated. They know they lost it because they feel it. So what do you do with that knowledge? You don't gloat. You don't weaponize it. You simply move on. You keep building. You keep being. You carry no need for validation. Your value doesn't hinge on their recognition. Stoicism isn't about revenge, it's about resilience. It's about letting your transformation stand on its own. And you don't need a public declaration to confirm that your absence was meaningful. You have proof in your own growth. You have proof in your peace. You have proof in your ability to transform silence into sovereignty. They may never admit they lost you, but you don't need their admission to know what you became. Because at the end, presence is stronger, life is richer, growth is deeper. And yes, they may never say it out loud. But you'll know. You'll always know. If this resonates, if you feel the weight of what presence can leave behind, go ahead and show your support. Like this video and drop a number 1 in the comments so I know this part hit you. Subscribe if you're ready to keep growing with real conversations about Stoic relationships and Stoicism in action. Your journey matters, your transformation speaks, and this community? We rise together. As we draw this deep exploration to a close, there's one truth that must settle in your bones: your silence, fully owned and gracefully held, is not just absence. It is a statement. A quiet revolution. It's the legacy of a heart that chose sovereignty over sentimentality, clarity over chaos, presence over performance. When you stopped chasing, you did more than walk away, you walked into yourself. By now, you've seen the layers beneath what seems like moving on. You've uncovered the facade of messages unsent, the tension between pride and desire, the tremble of almosts, the declarative power of your absence, the resonance of your echo, the unspoken confession of loss. Each layer has shown you that what most people mistake for indifference is often the groundwork of transformation. It isn't spite, they're learning too. It isn't intent, it's evolution. Let's reflect on the continuity of this journey. We began with the illusion of moving on. How performance hides pain and how quiet growth trumps loud display. Then we walked through the standoff of pride and desire. Next came the almosts, the text unsent, the impulse aborted, the heart still tethered. Then appeared the message unspoken, your silence becoming more than noise. We heard the echo, the aftershock of your presence in their absence. We recognized the stark reality. They know they lost you, but pride won't let them speak it. Now we arrive at the edge of understanding. True strength isn't defined by presence alone, it's cemented in what you leave behind. At its core, this is not a story about them. It's a story about you. It's about a version of yourself unchained by cultural expectations of healing, unshakable in your emotional sovereignty, refined by challenges they couldn't meet. Journeys like this are rare, not because they're unattainable, but because they require relentless self-mastery. Most folks choose either numbness or noise. You chose neither. You chose to be profoundly human. To feel deeply, to walk away quietly, to grow intentionally. That's the alchemy of Stoicism in practice. So what lies ahead? Healing without performing. Growth that doesn't need acknowledgement. Freedom that no reaction can shake. You continue. You rise. You walk into rooms unafraid of whispers about what you left behind, because what you hold inside, integrity, clarity, self-respect, is louder than any rumor. There may be seasons when you miss what you had. There may be moments when you question whether the silence was worth it. But every time doubt surfaces, remember, the alternative was trade-offs. Explained self-worth. Demanded validation. Chased reassurance. You refused that. You chose yourself. And yes, that means some doors closed. But it also means new ones opened. Doors measured not by echoes of the past, but by resonance with your evolution. In Stoic relationships, the greatest reconnection doesn't happen with reunion, it happens with remembrance. When you forge forward, anchored by what you've become, you meet people whose presence doesn't ask you to shrink. And those connections, unforced, mutual, aligned, are deeper than any attempt to rebuild what's lost. You won't settle for echoes. You'll step into capacities unmatched by what came before. Carry forward this realization: real influence isn't pushed. It's present. Real healing isn't performed. It's practiced. Real transformation isn't announced. It's demonstrated, through the calm in your doubt, the peace in your unattachment, the confidence in your integrity. Whether they send that text or remain silent forever, this path is yours. It's not about reconciliation. It's about reclamation. Not explanation, but elevation. You've reclaimed your narrative. You defined your boundaries. You exercised dignity in departure. You allowed absence to work its weird, quiet magic. They'll remember you, whether they tell you or not. Because absence marked not just what was lost, but what was real. And real leaves a residue that time can't erase. What remains now is your next step. Not to watch their silence. Not to crave their echoes. But to use this moment, right this second, to orient toward what's next. A new challenge that stretches you. A new chapter that doesn't beg for validation. A new mission informed by what you've learned. Because your transformation didn't happen to teach them. It happened so you could teach yourself. Lesson after lesson. Depth after depth. Strength after silence. And when someone asks, do they secretly hope you'll text again? You can answer with that awareness. They might. But it doesn't matter anymore. Your question isn't about them. It's, what happens now? Now you live a life that doesn't depend on their hesitation or their pride. Now your healing is your statement. Your growth is your gift to yourself. And your presence, quiet, steady, sovereign, becomes the future you're building. There is an energy that follows people who hold themselves with this kind of calm conviction. It's magnetic. It doesn't rely on words. It depends on integrity. It's not about attracting attention, it's about radiating self-respect. And that energy, your energy, isn't just transformative for others. It shapes your world, shapes your resilience, shapes your capacity to give and receive what you're truly ready for. So walk forward. Not with regret, not with longing, not with unanswered gestures, but with a stride informed by growth, guided by authenticity, anchored by stoic clarity. There will be new relationships ahead, marked by real emotional alignment, not borrowed echoes. There will be new seasons ahead, calm yet purposeful. There will be new stories to tell, stories of strength that didn't need noise, of impact that didn't need confirmation, of a life built on worth that required no chase. Here is your final practice, whenever the question returns. Do they secretly hope you'll text again? Smile, breathe, and answer. Perhaps. But that's their journey, not mine. Mine is here, in what I stand for, who I've become, and where I'm going. Let that answer sink in. Let it guide your next move. Embrace it as the mantra of your continued rebirth. Because silence once held potency. Now presence will hold legacy. And that is the quiet power of holding true to yourself, above anything, even when echo undeniably lingers.